Valdosta Middle School, let me hear you make some noise. Let me hear you make some noise. I would like to thank the superintendent, Dr. Todd Kaysen, and the principal, Ms. Beth DeLoach, and Ms. Natasha Gosier for this opportunity. Would you help me celebrate them by clapping your hands, young people? I'm going to try to run through this as quickly as possible. If I can have your attention, please. I believe I've got some phenomenal young people that are in my presence. Can y'all help me celebrate yourself? I'm not convinced. Help me celebrate yourself. There you go. Listen, the first Freedom Ride took place on May 4th, 1961. When 7 blacks and 6 whites left for Washington, D.C. on 2 public buses bound for the Deep South. They intended to test the Supreme Court's ruling in Boynton versus Virginia, which declared segregation in interstate bus and rail stations unconstitutional. In the first few days, the riders encountered only minor hostility, but in the second week, the riders were severely beaten. Outside Anniston, Alabama, one of the buses was burned, and in Birmingham, several dozen whites attacked the riders only 2 blocks away from the sheriff's office. With the intervention of the U.S. Justice Department, most of Corps' Freedom Riders were evacuated from Birmingham, Alabama to New Orleans. U.S. Representative John Lewis, who was at the time a former seminary student, who would later become a U.S. Congressman and leader of SNCC, stayed in Birmingham. The riders continued to Mississippi, where they endured further brutality and jail terms, but generated more publicity and inspired dozens more Freedom Riders. By the end of the summer, the protests had spread to train stations and airports across the South, and in November, the Interstate Commerce Commission issued rules prohibiting segregated transportation facilities. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you because the alarming question that raises eyebrows is, if the Freedom Riders were beaten, if they were mistreated, and if they were done wrong, why in the world did they not fight back? Allow me to inform you that the Freedom Riders did not fight back because they knew sometimes the power is not in what you say, sometimes the power is not in what you do, but sometimes the power is in where you sit. Before you can get an attitude and before you can allow your emotions to get the best of you, sometimes students, you just need to sit down. Before you become disruptive in class, you just need to sit down. Before you get caught doing the wrong things, you just need to sit down. And the next time somebody steps up in your face and tries to bully you, talk about you, and push you in a corner, you better look them in the face and say, man, sit down somewhere. Listen, we might as well have church over here. Look at somebody sitting next to you and tell them, man, sit down. Before you let somebody get the best of you, before you let somebody put you down after you're having a good day, you better look them dead in the eye and tell them, man, sit down somewhere. I'm here to tell you, students, faculty, and staff, that as you grow in life, you will realize there's no such thing as a free ride. Listen to me, because while you are trying to find your place in the world, while you are trying to figure out who you are, and while you are trying to just be the best you can be, some people will not like you just because of where you sit. I'll say that again. Some people will not like you. They will not be your friend. They will talk about you, and they will try to get in groups about you just because of where you sit. And I know many times people tell you that if you got to take a stand, and if you don't take a stand, you'll fall for anything. But I venture to tell you today that if you want to be free from the failure of falling, sometimes you just need to sit down. All the older people in the room can help me testify that sometimes you just got to sit down and take a load off. It's not something that you can say. It's not something you can do. But when you've done the best you can, after you tried your hardest to pass that test and still couldn't pass it, after you tried your hardest to be their friend and they still wouldn't talk to you, after you moved and you saved them a seat at the lunch table and they walked past you like they didn't know you, sometimes the best thing you can do is just sit up. Listen, I got to tell you, got to tell you that one of the things that are going to make you powerful in this life is how you take a seat. You got to take a seat whenever you enter the classroom so you can learn. You have to take a seat when people want to be mean and ugly and be a bully, and you got to let the adults handle the job. You got to take a seat whenever they offer you drugs. You got to take a seat when they want you to steal out of the store. You got to take a seat when they want you to be disrespectful to your parents. You got to take a seat when they want you to disrespect the teachers. And if things in your life seem to get too hard for you to handle, sometimes you got to take a seat and let the Almighty God fight your battle. Real quick, somebody say, God's got my back. God's got my back. God's got my back. I want you to know this is going to be the best school year you ever had. Why? Because God's got your back. You're going to be a millionaire one day. Why? Because God's got your back. You're going to be successful. Why? Because God's got your back. Where the 6th graders at in here that know God's got my back? Where the 7th graders at that know God's got my back? Where the 8th graders at? God's got my back. Listen. In the early 1956, Miss Breeden, in the early 1956, the home of Dr. Martin Luther King and Dr. E.D. Nixon were born. Dr. King was able to calm the crowd that gathered at his home by declaring, "Be calm as I and my family are. We are not hurt, and remember that if anything happens to me, there will be others to take my place." When we typically think of Black History Month, we think of Harriet Tubman, we think of Sojourner Truth, we think of Frederick Douglass, we think of George Washington Carver, we think of Rosa Parks, we think of Bessie Coleman, Madam C.J. Walker, Malcolm X, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And when you begin to think about these people, don't get me wrong, they were all great individuals. But when we think about them, we begin to miss the truth. We begin to carve an X on the kings that play in the parks of our neighborhoods. We begin to carve an X on the kings that play in our neighborhoods and play in our playgrounds. Carver did not die for you to carve an X out on the males who walk through our classrooms. Washington did not invent for us to wash out the young women who gather in the pools of our educational system. And albeit Martin Luther King was a smart and wise man, I will not forget about the young people that are sitting in this gymnasium right here at this moment. Listen, teachers, we cannot push the children to the back burner. We cannot silence them and make them feel less than. But rather we should sit the students at the head of our lives. We should not set them in situations beyond their control and expect them to maintain and just be okay. But we should help the students. We should hear the students, and we should take heed to what the students have to say. We cannot neglect our children any longer. So many children are already neglected and they're already beat down as is. And when they come to school, they don't come to school to be beat down any further. It's time that we put the children at the center of our communities again. It's time that we put the children at the center of our churches. Put the children at the center of our schools. Put the children back where they belong, in the forefront and not at the back burner. Listen to me, because I'm convinced, young black men, that the only time you should be in a courtroom is when you are sitting behind the desk and not standing in front of the desk. Listen to me, young ladies, I am convinced that the only time you should be sitting at the doctor's office is when you are sick and have the flu, and if you are the doctor, and you should not be the pregnant teenage patient. Life Let me tell you something, young people. Hear me good, you may not like this, but life is not about Jordans, life is not about jeans, and life is not about Jesus pieces. Life is not about how good your hair looks, life is not about what kind of clothes you got on your back, but life is about love, peace, joy, happiness, temperance, long-suffering, goodness, meekness. That is what life is about. Life is not about what you got in your bank account, life is about how you can help somebody else. Listen, because they've already said this before, but I am convinced that black history is American history. And there would be no American history if there was no black history. If there were no black history, we would not know who Dr. Martin Luther King is. And let me tell you something, if we're going to do like Dr. King said, if we're going to take his place, we must replace ignorance with kindness. We must stop fighting each other and identify the real enemy. We must replace bad behavior with better grades. We must stop making it seem like it's not okay for you to be smart. I don't care who talks about you. If you know you're smart, stop trying to dumb yourself down for other people. Show the world who you really are. You are smarter than that. Let me tell you something, because people want to make it seem like it's not okay to be educated. They want to make it seem like it's not okay for you to make good grades. But you should get at a point in your life and make up in your mind, if I have to lose some friends at middle school, that's all right. I'll make some more in high school. If you don't want to talk to me no more, that's okay. If you don't want to call me no more, that's okay. You ain't got to text me, and please get out of my DMs, because when I because it is in your DNA to be successful. Are you listening to me? It's in your DNA to be successful. Look at somebody sitting beside you and tell them, it's in my blood to be successful. And y'all are paying attention. Let me tell you something. If you ever want to know how successful you're supposed to be, I want you to look at the pyramids in Egypt. I want you to look at the wonders of Tanzania. I want you to look at the powers of Ghana, the industrial abilities of Europe, and the know-how of the Native Americans. I don't want you to ever feel like you are not meant to succeed, because when you look at your history, everybody that is in your bloodline was successful. So I just want to encourage you today to let you know, I don't care how it looks or how it feels, you were born, you were created, you were designed to succeed, and although it's hard right now, I come to let you know better days are ahead if you continue to work on. Listen, and I'm closing here with this. I was at a service recently, and when I went to the service, I walked in the building and I was late. And I told the people that I was coming, but I was late when I got there. And when I got there, the building was packed and there were no seats on the front row. So when I went in the building, I looked at the usher and I told them, I said, I need a seat on the front row. She looked at me and she said, Pastor Stone, everybody's already filled up the front row. You should have been on time. I told her, I said, well, I'm late now, but I still need to get a seat on the front row. She said, why, Pastor Stone? Why do you need a seat on the front row? We can get you another seat. I told her, I said, I'm here now. I need a seat on the front row so I can see. She could not understand for the life of me why I wanted to sit on the front row. And I told her, baby, the reason I need to sit on the front row is because I need a good seat. And I want to tell the young people that are under my voice that it doesn't matter where you sit, it doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter where you're from, as long as you got a good seat,